Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast with your host, Ryan Weimer. Today, I've got Shannon Robnett with me, the one, the only land developer, entrepreneur, coach, mentor, real estate investor, Boise native?
Almost. I got here when I was 8.
Okay.
So I've been here for 44 years. So
Close enough.
Close enough.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I have, we've had 3 children, so those are anchor babies, so they count. I mean, if they count on the southern border, they count on the Idaho border. I'm just here to tell you.
100%.
Yes, I'm a native.
Your secret's safe with me. Well, today we're going to get into all things real estate development, finding deals, some mindset stuff. You're buying an aquarium.
Yeah, I bought one, yeah.
You bought an aquarium.
Yeah.
I want to start there because we were talking about this off air. That's badass, man.
Yeah.
Buying an aquarium.
Yeah. It's definitely the top 3 dumb things I've done in real estate. Yeah, I bought a building that was in an opportunity zone, and for your listeners, an opportunity zone is a tax advantage zone that is phenomenal for development. And I pictured taking and wiping this 45,000 square foot building off the map, creating some depreciation for my investors. Everybody makes money, and then building a 5-story apartment building. It's right by the mall, great freeway access. The market's changed a little bit.
It's here in Boise.
It's here in Boise, yeah. And in the building was a bail bonds company, used bookstore, because those are really popular now, Ryan. I don't know if you know. Everybody's trying to copy Bezos, or Bezos, or whatever you call him. And then an aquarium and a gymnastics facility. And the more I got to talk with the lady that's running the aquarium that has a really bad history that she's completely turned around, the more I just realized that needs to stay in Idaho. We don't have a lot of outlets for children that are creative, that are educational. And so the more I've talked with her, the more I realized this thing is an okay deal. It works. It's just old. Yeah. And, it wasn't created by the best people with the best intentions. She's changed all of that. And at the end of the day, we raised $4.5 million for it, fully funded that. And now we're going in and we're remodeling it, and we're going to change some of the exhibits and just, increase the user's experience. And so it is, I'm not building an aquarium business. I bought an aquarium business that works fine, just needed a complete facelift. So
I got so many questions about this.
I mean, have fish and $4.5 million. Look what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. All kinds of fish. Yeah. So what made her want to start an aquarium to begin
She
with?
didn't.
Okay.
So her background is she's a nurse.
Okay.
And you know how nurses are, they like to save everything, right?
Yes.
Well, this nurse happened to be married to a plastic surgeon, ran in a different circle. When Opera Idaho got in trouble almost 2 decades ago, she jumped in and helped them out and got them back on track. When these other gentlemen that started the aquarium got into trouble with the feds, they were literally arrested for smuggling fish in their pants through an airport. I mean, it's like
you can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry. Is that a shark in your pants? Or are you happy to see me? I mean, but anyway, she stepped in and she kept it alive and kept it going, and even during COVID, did very well with it. And so, but the lease is up on the building the end of this year. She's in her 80s. I mean, she has been a true trooper about this for the community, and it just didn't feel right to bulldoze the building and I don't know what you would call homeless fish other than dinner, but I just the more I got involved with her and talked with her and everything, I just realized that it was the right thing to do to change tactics. And luckily, when I put developments together, I know that there's multiple exits, so that if this building didn't work, I bought it and the rents were low enough that I could raise the rents and make everything work, and it would be a great deal anyway, just as a leasehold building.
So talking to the city, right, about this, I'm assuming the square footage is going to increase. Are you turning the whole building into it, or are you just remodeling what's there?
2/3.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're going to go from about 6,000 square foot of display space to about 18,000 square foot of display space.
Okay.
So they're going to triple.
Do you get to pick what kind of fish go in there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I have no idea. I mean, maybe some seahorses. That will go with the DEI part because the husband's the male seahorse takes care of the children.
yeah.
So we'll have that equality part in there. And but I mean, we've got stingrays, we've got sharks already, and so we're going to definitely expand that experience.
Cool.
But yeah, it's for the most part going to remain a lot of the same fish that are already there.
Okay. And
So-
how in the world do you go about evaluating this from a numbers
Well, that's
perspective?
really easy actually, because it's I just took all their point of sale numbers, right? I took their point of sale machine, figured everything out, and I looked at it. And Ryan, as you know, in your business, there's a certain quote unquote break even point, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you acquire one house or 20 houses, it costs X dollars a month to stay in business. That's your employees, your cost of goods sold, all of that goes into one bucket. And then you have your income in the other. And when I looked at what she had going on with the experience that she was providing, she's charging $13, which is a fair price. In fact, she's got 30,000 people a month that agree with that as far as the pricing structure.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so if we don't change the number of people and we do the improvements, we've got to get a return to our investors on the improvements. We have to bring the rent to market. So the rent will double on 3 times the size. And so then I just built all the numbers back in, and I said, if I'm charging $19 for an enhanced experience with the numbers that are already there, what does that look like? And really, it takes it from about a $300,000 annual profit to closer to $1 million.
Wow. And
Because your cost of goods don't change. You do have some $4 million of tenant improvement to pay back.
Yeah.
And to reward your investors for participating in. But they're also getting rewarded with some massive tax benefits up front. So it's really a good thing for everybody.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm sure raising money for that one was probably pretty fun compared to.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was, because I had a couple of investors call me and go, "You're doing what?" You're
Is this the Shannon I know?
Yeah, I mean, why are you doing this? And Ryan, as you and I've talked several times, my big thing is I look at the tax gravity of the situation first, right? Because if you've got a product that's going to give you a 10% return with no tax benefits, and a product that's going to give you a 5% return with tax benefits, it may likely be the 5% return will do more for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially based on things like investment timeline. How long are you going to be invested in this? How long are you going to own this? What is your exit? How are you going to exit? And so when I was able to explain to them that, this will be 100% write-off for you on your investment in year one, meaning that it will go against your active income. It will go against your passive income. It will be as if you lost whatever your investment is the minute you gave it to me.
Yeah.
Then they began to ask, well, am I going to? And I'm like, well, no, that's just what what the IRS will look at. But then you combine that with it being in the opportunity zone, which allows them to defer some taxes to a later date. And then if we own the business for 10 years, we can sell the business as a whole and pay no income tax on it. So there's a lot of benefit with this. And so crafting that, people then began to go, okay, yeah, that's a very similar story to all your other investments and what you do. So we like that. But how are you going to run an aquarium? And I go, whoa, wait a minute. All the people are in place.
Yeah.
Right? We need a director to replace Joni, who's been there for the last 10 years. And that will be a challenge, but not an insurmountable challenge. The biologist is there. All of the other people that are in place now to take care of it are already there. And so it's going to be just a continuation of what's there. I mean, you can't buy people. Abraham Lincoln made that illegal in the United States, right? But all the people are there because they love the job, and so they all want to come to work at the new facility. And so the real challenge is the remodel of the new half of the new space, moving all the fish,
Yep.
remodeling the second space, I mean, all of that just has its challenges, but again, it's going to be a fun one, and it will be one of those that will have spectacular results, or there will be water everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But there should be some sushi if that happens.
Well, if it goes wrong, yes, but PETA will be not happy. Not happy with you and I, Ryan.
So what does it cost now to go to like the movie theater and get a ticket? I mean, I feel like $19 is still is a steal.
Well, I was just down in Phoenix, and the aquarium down there, there are two. One is $19 and one is $30.
Okay.
And the $30 one is much bigger and much newer. But even the $19 one is quite the experience. And, when you look at things like that, I mean, you can't get a Happy Meal for $3
No,
anymore.
I know.
I mean,
yeah.
So when you look at it, all things considered, I don't think that raising the price by $5 on what they're currently getting is going to put it out of people's reach to where, they don't come anymore. Because the other side of it is you don't have competition.
Right.
You have other things that are similar, the zoo or, I don't know, the go-karts or, the MK Nature Center or, some things like that. But as far as aquariums go, the closest one is in Salt Lake. The next closest one is in Portland, Oregon. And then, Phoenix. So, I mean, we regularly have busloads of people come from Idaho Falls.
Wow.
It's that boring in Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
To the Boise Aquarium, right? For the purpose of the Boise Aquarium and then back. That's like their school trip. It's like get up early, go to Boise, really excited, go back to Idaho Falls, really sad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's a year-round thing, right? I can imagine wintertime with zoos is tough because it's cold. And
yeah, their attendance is way down. But as far as what we're looking at, it's pretty much year-round.
Very cool. And how much are they spending in advertising so far to get 30,000 in the door a month?
About $5,000 a year.
A year.
Yeah, a year.
Oh, I thought it was a month.
No,
that makes it even worse.
No, they have. And I think their largest ad spend is on the Yellow Pages.
Wow.
Just because of the curator that's there, and it doesn't matter. It works.
Yeah.
Right. Her signage is way back in the corner, and it's faded and it's ugly, and it was the logo that came with the place when she took over. I mean, so many things are fantastic. It's a magical story because of what she has done with what was handed to her that you and I would have just been like,
not a lot of lemonade there.
No, there's a lot of squeezing going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of squeezing going on, but she's really made it something, and we'll continue that legacy for her.
That's incredibly cool. So do you feel like these are kind of more of the opportunities that you're looking for now? I don't want to call them like legacy projects, but different things that are exciting outside the norm.
I think I do like the exciting and different part, but you've got to have your bread and butter that just pays the bills and keeps things going. And I would say that a lot of our investors were not as quick to jump on board as they have been in the past because you've got a whole different thing. I mean, it doesn't matter if we're having inflation or recession or COVID, you still need a place to live.
Yeah.
You still need a place to operate your business. And so the backbone of our business is still in high demand. I actually do have the numbers on what this business did during COVID, and it was quite spectacular because, okay, if everything's locked down but we can still kind of go to these things, what can we do? So there's a lot more, there's some different parameters with this, where movie theaters are going out of business because, everything is on your tablet and on demand now and everything. But at the end of the day, I think parents, when we were in Phoenix, we were talking to one of the curators down there, and parents are really trying hard to get their kids off their screens.
100%, yeah.
And get them involved in things. And I know we could watch Finding Nemo, but we could actually really go see Nemo. You know, and so it's those kinds of things I think that are going to continue to make this viable.
Very cool, and it's in Boise too.
And it's in Boise,
which is spectacular.
Yeah. So
right on. So for those of you that don't know you, right, your background, you're fourth generation realtor, I think
Yeah.
second generation
Fourth
developer.
generation realtor.
Okay.
My son is a fifth generation realtor. You know, we're not exactly groundbreakers. If the other guys could do it before us, we could probably get it handled. But I grew up with a real estate mom and a developer dad. My brother builds high end houses in a resort town. So, you know, we've just kind of always been in the business. And I was going to college, and my brother was, you know, right out of high school building small 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses. And in, you know, in 93, 94, he makes, you know, $45,000, and I'm going to college to make 23 when I get out. And I did the math real quick. I didn't even need a slide ruler for this. And I figured out that wasn't going to work for me. And so I began building houses and realized I didn't like homeowners. And so I switched into the commercial end, and I built police stations and fire stations and city halls and a lot of medical facilities, gyms, schools, a lot of industrial. And I just really began to see that when I got done with my job, the owner made money, because I would give the project back and they would begin to lease it out, or they would begin whatever their purpose was for the building. And I became unemployed.
Yep.
And I had to go find another job, and I had to go do this stuff. And I just was kind of like, you know, and then I watched my parents at 50 years old retire on cash flow off of their industrial products. And, you know, that was in 2001. So 24 years later, my parents are living the same or better a lifestyle than what they were then, because rents are inflation adjusted.
Yep.
And, you know, they were getting 45 cents a foot in rent. Now they're getting $1.15. And so they live a great life. And I'm sitting here going, I'm on the wrong end. I'm on the transaction end here. I need to get on the holding end of it. I need to get on the part that, you know, you get to grow this, and over time it gets better and better and better. And so I transitioned to that. I did my first industrial project for myself in '01, and then just kind of began to see where I could start working with different people. I worked with a doctor on one project. I worked with a real estate agent on another, just individual partners. And then I got to the point where, you know, I worked with a family office, and they brought $19 million to a deal that we did, and we sold that in 22. And I just began to realize I needed access to more capital. So then we kind of began to syndicate, and we've raised about $78 million to date through different projects in the last 5 years.
Wow.
So
Wow. Maybe take me back to like a younger Shannon when you're going through this. Yeah, my parents have been on the owning end of real estate. I'm going to school, and it hasn't clicked for me yet that I need to be on that end, because you went to school anyways.
Well, I only went for a year. I mean,
Okay.
I'm stupid, but I'm only one and a half semesters of stupid.
But I'm sure your parents had this conversation with you when you were younger, right?
No.
Like, no?
No. So, you know, my parents, if you were not gone from the house by 8:30 on a Saturday, you became the help, you know.
Okay.
But, you know, my parents were entrepreneurial. So when my brother and I was 13, my brother was 12, they rented a snow shack for us. And we ran a snow shack. We had this business during the summer. You know, some kids were mowing lawns. We were selling snow cones, you know.
Yeah.
And we began to start to understand what business was, but they never really sat us down and said, hey, you should do this, you know. My mom graduated college, so she wasn't totally opposed to it. But when I started to go, I was going for computer information systems, because Ryan, the Wayback Time Machine says that in 1992, that was a really popular thing for people to go into. But I wanted something different. I did not like the hard labor part of it. I'd framed houses, I'd built cabinets, and I didn't really care for it. And then when I started building houses, obviously my dad's idea was you build everything. So, you know, we dug the foundation, we put in all the utilities. I hired 2 other guys. We framed the house, we sided the house, we painted the house inside and out, we built all the cabinets. We did a lot of the work. And after about 3 houses, I realized that I was not leveraging my time. I was so involved that I could build 3 houses a year, or I could go to the general contracting concept where all I did was organize everybody else. And I made a smaller fee. I didn't make an hourly wage, but I was now dealing with 10 houses a year instead of 3.
Mm.
I was dealing with a $2 million police station that I just organized rather than 3 houses. And so I began to put together more of a team, and we did a lot of things that way, and really grew that to the point that, we don't physically perform much of anything on the job, but we're leveraging the plumber and we're leveraging the electrician. So, I think right now today on one project, I think I've got 13 framers working for me as a subcontractor without me having to go do the work.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So at what age did it click finally?
Yeah. So I'm building the houses. I think really probably about 26, 27. I remember my oldest son was born, and I had to leave the hospital about 6 hours after he was born to go finish a cabinet install.
Wow.
That I was in the middle of. And, my dad's always been the answer to every single one of his problems. And he's done very well, but he's been very busy. And so I've kind of learned that in order to buy back my time, I had to use other people that I could leverage that, they wanted the job being the excavator. They wanted the job pouring the concrete, and instead of me doing it.
Right on. Well, on this podcast, we love to cover early in the episode, what has been your biggest failure to date?
Well, there's so many. Honestly, right? So I was having a conversation with my daughter, 25-year-old, that's looking to start her first business, and she's so afraid of making mistakes, right? Yeah. And I have failed. I think, the cabinet business that I talked about when I was 23, that didn't work. I've had a couple other businesses that didn't work. I have some that I've sold that were barely profitable. Honestly, let me just kind of turn this around a little bit.
Yeah.
My biggest failure was being afraid of failure.
Wow. Yeah.
Fail early, fail often, because, that's really the way that I've learned.
Yep.
Right. I've had some pretty spectacular stink bombs, but, what I've always done is I've looked at it after the fact, and I've said, okay, what could I have done different? What could I have done better? Where did this thing fall apart? What was the Achilles heel? Where was I blind to the reality of what really needed to come out of this? So often we sell ourselves on the idea without the market research, right? So go back to the aquarium. I don't need to sell myself on owning a 130-pound grouper,
right?
I have the numbers that say owning a grouper of that size, along with all of his friends, will be profitable, right? And so I think that a lot of people, idealize what it's going to be like, and it's entrepreneurship, as you found out, is one of the harder things you're going to do in life. But the reward is of having your own time is pretty incredible, and then being able to live the life you want. Decide what you want to do. But yeah, I would say biggest failure was being afraid of failure. And then after that would be actually failing and not looking at what was wrong with you. Where did the wheels come off of your bus? What could you have done different? If you run around there with a millennial attitude that it's not my fault and I need a safe space to recover. I'm not very politically correct, but you knew that.
I thought you were going to go with Gen X, but Gen Z.
I could go Gen X, but that really makes Gen Z cry, But we just, you have to be able to look at yourself, right? Because you're the only thing that you can change. And if you can't accept that, look, I make mistakes every day, right? My staff understands that we're going to do what he says, but he's going to be open to looking at what maybe we could have done different. And, you build that rapport and you build that trust that now we don't always have to do what Shannon says. We can talk with him because some of the things that I've heard from my staff have averted. But, you're only as good as the people you're surrounding yourself with, the data that you're getting from them and the information that you're listening to.
Yep.
And if you're not able to listen and you're not able to look at where you failed, then the entrepreneurial road is going to be much harder for you.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why we cover it on this show, is because the irony is the more you fail, and oftentimes the harder you fail, the more you speed up that feedback loop of continuous improvement, right?
100%.
So it's a necessary part of growth if you want to get to where you're going. Now, The question becomes, you don't want to be failing so hard and fast that you're completely reckless, and you don't want to be taking zero at all so that you're never learning and growing. So how do you thread the needle there?
Yeah, so I've been pretty reckless and I've wrecked myself pretty thoroughly. So there definitely, I think pushing the envelope is something that entrepreneurs do, but you have to be able to understand what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Pluses and minuses, right? And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs don't take the time to look at what the downside will cost.
Or they underestimate the downside
Or they
altogether.
underestimate there's a downside to this.
Yeah.
But it was my great idea, Ryan. I mean,
Exactly.
it should work, And one of the other things that I never did, I didn't have a partner until 8 years ago, where I
Wow.
really had a partner, a financial backing partner, and that really hindered my growth.
Yeah.
I always looked at it and go, man, I don't want to give up part of my pie. I have this whole project that I can do, and I it's for me, but I will tell you that 10% of 8 pies is way better than 100% of one pie. Because if your one pie is a cow pie, you have to go all the way back to the drawing board. You have to reinvent yourself. You've got to do the whole thing, right?
Yep.
And I don't mean spin 8 different plates, right? But I mean, Ryan, your business is a prime example. At any given time, you've got a dozen people you're negotiating with.
Yep.
Because you know the numbers that 35% of those aren't going to come to the table,
Right.
or whatever your number is.
Yep.
And then of those that come to the table, 50% are going to be profitable to some degree, and 10%, 20% are not going to be that profitable, but 40% of them or 20% of them are going to be wildly profitable, which is what you're fishing for, right?
Yep.
But you've got to stay in the game.
Yeah. What was the moment that you decided, hey, this partnership thing, this having financial backing, this is actually what I need instead of something to repel?
So I was finishing up a job in Nampa. I was finishing building a mini storage, and I found this piece of ground, and we eventually put 180 units of apartments on it, sold it for $64 million. And there was no way I could figure out how to get this done. I mean, I had $40, right? I mean, I had enough for the plans and the down payment on the land, and I couldn't close it. Banks weren't interested in loaning me that much money, and I just saw that by leveraging that and involving this family office, they made a tremendous amount of money. But then again, so did I.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, their ROI was 2x in 3 years.
Wow.
Right? My ROI was 45x on what I actually put into it.
Wow. Yeah.
And then the knowledge part was 10x for me.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I can say this now because my partners know this, but, the biggest project I'd ever built up to that point was maybe a quarter of the size of this one.
Holy cow. Okay.
So this was a big jump, right?
Yeah.
This was a sales job and a half. But, everybody goes, oh, well, multifamily, that's really hard. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, it's $40 million worth of construction. I said, no, there's 2 building types, and I'm going to build the same building 4 times.
Right.
If I can't figure it out after the first one and not have any mistakes on the second one, I really need to put my helmet on and go get in the short bus again. I mean, there's just like, and yes, it is a large project, and yes, there is a lot that goes into it, and there are timelines and factors and all of that, and I'm still, we're still learning those and still cranking on those. But at the end of the day, when we did that project, they were a lot less concerned with the daily activity. They were more concerned with big picture items. And the other thing that I figured out, Ryan, that I didn't understand prior was that by partnering with people that were very specialized in this finance area, I learned a lot. They could care less about banging sticks together and paving and all that.
Right.
But I learned a lot about deal structure and about how things work and who's going to be excited about it and who's going to be involved. And when you start getting into that, there's ways to look at things and ways to put things together. My original idea of the partnership was just, hey, you bring all the money, I'll bring all the expertise. At the end of it, we'll split it in half. And it worked to a large degree, but there was better ways to have structured it. And I learned those from a guy who used to syndicate capital for Hollywood. And, because you can't get a loan on a movie.
Right.
It's either going to do really well or really bad, and the banks don't want to be involved. And so you have these different layers of capital. So I began to learn all that, but I had to get so astronomically uncomfortable and get out there because I had always been the guy that figured it out. I did have a partner on a building before where, hey, you know what? You buy the land, we'll both do the deal, but nothing to this caliber. And then, since then, we've gone on to do 3 other apartment complexes and multiple industrial projects. We've got projects from Washington to Florida going right now. And so, but I had to get insanely uncomfortable, and I had to bring some level of learnability. I had to be teachable.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't know. And I had to be, willing to go talk to people that several of them laughed at me. They didn't like my idea. They thought it was stupid. And luckily I found the one that, kind of like you, Ryan. I mean, your story's not much different. You banged on a lot of doors to get that first deal.
Yeah.
And, once you figure out what makes that thing work, you can get into that feedback loop that makes it quicker and quicker to repeat.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really the name of the game in entrepreneurship is just longevity. It's like, how long can you withstand pain to get through it?
I don't know anybody that has been in business a decade or more that doesn't have the almost lost everything story.
Yeah. Sometimes multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember the story that Cody Sanchez was talking about one time when I saw her speaking, was that she was talking with this guy in first class going somewhere, that there was a club of friends that they all got together once a month, and you couldn't be in the club if you hadn't been sued, if you hadn't been bankrupt, if you hadn't lost everything. One of the 3 you had to have done to be in this club. And it's because those are the times that you really find out your mettle.
Yep.
You really find out, how are you going to resolve this? Because there's a lot of people that are going to throw up their hands and walk away. You're finding people like that all the time when you're wholesaling houses. Life got hard. Not that it wasn't, it has nothing to do with whether or not life does get hard. It does.
Yep.
But it's what you do with it that makes the difference in how you're going to solve your problems, And it's not about, eating the whole elephant today. I mean, I'm doing an aquarium one bite at a time, and it took me a little while to get here. I've owned the building for 3 years, and I'm just now getting to the point where I'm like, okay, but it's educating yourself, and it's doing the motions, and it's continuing to do the processes, and the same process of underwriting that I've done 100 times on buildings, I'm now doing on fish.
Yeah.
And so you're just taking and tweaking it, but yeah, it's a constant process.
And this evolution with you, taking on that deal that was 4 times or 3 times bigger than anything you've ever done before, right? And now you're essentially whale hunting, more or less, with everything. How does somebody become? That's such a big jump. People always talk about, well, I want to do less deals, but I want to do bigger deals. And to some extent, pump the brakes if you don't have the experience and you're not willing to take on that risk.
Yeah.
But how do you know you're ready for a jump like that?
You don't. The jump usually finds you, sneaks up on you in a dark alley, drags you down the street. I think it's being willing to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. And everybody has opportunities that they go, oh, I don't know that I can. Well, of course you can't. If, you and I've heard that whether you say you can or you say you can't, you are correct.
Yep.
Right. And so I've always said, can I? And then I have to ask myself the second question, should I? Because once you commit to it, you can't half-ass this, right? You're either all in or you're all out. And if you're not going to be all in, you're gonna hurt yourself and you're gonna hurt everybody else involved. But there's ways to be involved that are survivable on big jumps like that, right?
Yep.
So in this particular deal that I did, the very first one, I had no financial input, and I had to give up quite a bit for that. But what I got was a ton of experience, and I got a lot of the upside, but there was a guarantee for the investor,
Right.
right? So the guarantee was, hey, we get X first, right? We get 18% on our money annually, first of all. I was like, wow, that's expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
It's
wait
a
a
big
minute.
guarantee. Yeah.
I got $40. They've got 20 million. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but so then you had to look at that and you say, okay, they get this, and then we have a profit split above that, right? Well, I got paid some for my labor and my time and building the project out, not near as much as I could have had I had the reputation of being successful at building apartment complexes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I can get more for my time. We're doing a project now that I'm now getting market, what we would call market, for just the construction of the project, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, you've got to earn those chops. So what I looked at and I go, man, I can feed my company. I can pay my way through school, and we can build this 180 unit apartment complex out, and we can get to the other side. That's awesome. And if it's profitable, I get to make money. And if it's not, I don't lose any money. Okay, I'll take that, right? Where I could have negotiated a way better deal, and I do negotiate better deals today because I have the resume for that. And a lot of people need to remember that, hey, you know what? If I can put that on a resume, there's more likely that I'm going to be able to do it next time.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. Yep. You're
I
always
think when I talk with my investors, the number one thing that we talk about is my resume. What have you done? What was successful? What wasn't? What are you doing in the future? They don't really get into the underwriting as much as they're getting into what's your track record? What's your resume? You know?
Yeah, they know that the operator is really going to determine the success or failure of the project, not what the spreadsheet says.
100%.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about market cycles quickly. How many have you been through?
Too many.
Okay.
I think I've been through, there was the .com one, 96. That affected housing. I went through 08. That was pretty horrific. Then the long build up back out of that. There was COVID, and now the inflationary cycle we're in now that's really kind of turning our nation into a renter nation.
Yep.
So I've seen a lot that way. But, fundamentals are fundamentals. And, there's always something that changes in the matrix, but the underlying, there's 3 of the 4 factors are still in play, right? And so as long as you're paying attention to things and you have a plan B and a plan C, you're going to be okay, and a work ethic to get through whatever that transition needs to be, and be decisive.
Yeah.
When is it time to transition? When it does this, we got to go. We got to make the jump. We got to change, and don't hesitate when it comes to that. That's where, we've gotten hurt quite a bit. It's just when the transitions need to happen and you're still
hanging on. Yeah.
Yeah. Wringing your hands and thinking, well, I said we would do it if it did this. I was filling an apartment complex, and I was really trying hard to make certain numbers work because I wanted to make certain numbers work.
Yep.
And finally, I just said, you know what? Let's fill the apartment complex. We dropped our rents back to about 8% under market, stabilized the whole project, rented out 22 apartments in 35 days.
Wow.
Stabilized it, and knew that we would pick that up on the next cycle.
Yep.
Right. And so you've got to understand that there's times when you're paying attention to all the numbers, you're paying attention to some of the numbers, what is it you're doing and how are you doing it?
Yeah. Now, there was a lot of people that said when interest rates basically doubled in short order that there was going to be all of this commercial, inventory that was distressed in the country. Are you seeing any pain right now?
Oh, but there was all kinds of pain, right? But pain is opportunity.
Yep.
So, the office building that we're sitting in right now, we bought this thinking we'd fill it in 18 months. COVID happened, became problematic. Yeah. We're hitting our numbers. We're hitting our market. So everything should have been fine, but then interest rates have gone up. So cap rates have gone up. So the value's gone down. But, a lot of people get confused and they go, well, value, you said this building would be worth $10 million in 24 months. Yeah, okay. And you said it would bring in this much cash flow. Yeah. And you said we'd sell in 5 years. Yeah. Well, none of that's happening. Well, we are bringing in the cash flow. No, the building's not worth $10 million, and we're only 3 years into the plan, so we're not selling yet,
Yeah.
right? And then the reality becomes, if we've got the cash flow, why would we sell in 5 years if
Yeah,
we're
you can
not
ride
going
it
to
out.
make as much money, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got to have an adjustable plan. You've got to have things that are flexible, but you've got to be able to analyze it and go, what's best for the investor? What's best for the deal? I think a lot of people are losing money in real estate right now because they have too short a window.
Yes.
I
100%.
think in 16, when things started to warm up, 17, people were making a lot of money. But I guarantee you, every single person that sold an apartment complex in 18 and 19 and 20 and made a killing wishes they had that apartment complex back.
Yeah.
So real estate is a long-term game. It's not something that you jump in and jump out of. I mean, this is not stock trading, right? And so there were a lot of people that made great money on the short term. They got in, they got a 2x in 22 months.
Yeah.
That's great. But if you could have got a 4x in 10 years, that would be great too. Now, what did you do with your 2x? Were you able to get into something else? Because, it's not like you sold out up here and then dropped way back down here and got in at entry level again because prices had moved. So what are you really doing? And I think a lot of people have the wrong mindset on investing.
Yeah.
You're not an investor. You have a business of flipping that generates income.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
a business. When you're looking at investing, it needs to be something where you're going, you know what? I like the cash flow. I'm really concerned about 10 years down the road.
100%. Your time horizon has to be long enough for you to actually reap the benefits. You can't be looking for this sexy, quick cash, get rich quick overnight stuff.
Well, and it goes back to our efforts as well. I think, I don't know, one of the smart guys, it wasn't you and me, one of the smart guys said you overestimate what you can do in a year and you underestimate what you can get done in 10, right? But looking back at you on your 399th phone call, and you're like, okay, not knowing that it's going to take you 400 plus to get your first deal, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Once you got your first deal, you still had no idea that it would be what it is today. Not in your wildest dreams could you imagine that it would be what it is today.
Yep.
And I'm the same way, right? So even in your biggest overestimation of what this could be, and you're 395 phone calls deep into this quagmire, you had no idea what you could get if you just kept applying it. And that's where, the mindset goes, okay, great. We got the one. How do we improve that feedback loop? And how do we get going faster? And how do we, systematize and continue to elevate to where now I don't have to make every single one of those phone calls. And what can we do in the interim? And, all of those different things. And so there's a lot that can happen with time.
Yes. Yeah, there's a real hockey stick effect.
Absolutely.
Not only with your skills, your leverage, what you can offer, your wealth, all of this stuff you don't really see that in the first few years, especially. I mean, you're getting your teeth kicked in constantly, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're getting kicked other places too.
Yeah. The teeth are the nicest ones.
But there's a real hockey stick effect of momentum because these things really start to compound, right?
Well, and then people's belief in you starts to do the same.
Yep.
Your belief in yourself starts to do the same. I mean, I know the answer is yes, but there were times, even 35 deals done, that you wondered, is this going to work? Did this change? Am I going to get another deal? There's just things that happen and things that change, and am I going the right direction? And in that, I mean, there's been a lot of wrong turns that I've made when things are going good, that I've looked back and gone, oh, yeah, let's reroute. Let's do that. Let's not do that again. But it's all of those that have built the better mousetrap that have allowed it to hockey stick that then put you in the place that you're like, oh, okay, now I'm getting 75% of it right.
Yes.
And that's really where you can continue to compound and grow.
Yeah. Let's talk about kind of your 5-year vision from here. At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business. What's your favorite part about working at Offer Now Idaho?
I would say it's the culture. I really enjoy the people that we have here. They want to grow. They want to become better versions of themselves. They're hard charging. We're all pushing each other to be better. We're not two different teams competing on the same battlefield. We're one team practicing because we have a goal of helping 1 million people over the next 10 years. That's a big number. We can have an impact on people's lives while we're on that journey. And the work that you might do year 1 or in month 1 is going to have a positive impact on that family for the next decade. And that's huge.
The growth potential that we have, I mean, we could easily 2 or 3x here in the next few years with what we've built, the type of people that we've attracted, and the type of people that we're going to attract. This thing is headed for the moon, and we have so many vacancies, and we need your help to fill them. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at RealRyanWeimer on Instagram.
Let's get it.
What do you have in the works? What do you set goals? What does that look like? Okay.
I talked with a young lady early on, and she had the philosophy that you set more goals than you can ever possibly think you could get done. And you train yourself to constantly be climbing. I was 32 years old. I had achieved every goal I'd set in high school, right? And it was really kind of a deflating feeling.
You're like, now what?
Yeah, either you're not smart enough to set really lofty goals, or you're exceptional, and I'm not. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, now, I've had this whole goal of owning my own company and owning my own business, owning my own buildings, and having this, this level of financial availability and freedom, and I'm there at 32, and it's gone at 35.
Yeah.
And then it's rebuilt, and so I set a lot of goals. I'm constantly adding to my list, but the thing that I get the most out of is I want to constantly be learning.
Yeah.
I want to constantly be digging deeper. I want to be constantly putting myself. I want to be the dumbest person in the room all the time, and I know that doesn't appear to be very hard, right?
Yeah.
You've got to find some pretty dumb people to hang out with to be the dumbest person in the room when you're me. But finding smart people that are constantly doing different things. One of the things that we're having success with is, going through the underwriting process and evaluation of buying businesses. Real estate's great for tax purposes. It's not that fantastic for cash flow early on.
Yep.
So building out a fund that does a combination of both, that invests in businesses and invests in real estate, so you're able to have the benefit of both worlds, where you're getting a decent cash flow while you're getting the benefits of real estate. So constantly learning, but and I've told a lot of people, I'd like to die with an LOI in my pocket. I really don't think I ever want to quit. Maybe not do as much in every single deal. But, I know a successful real estate developer, he's a billionaire, and I remember when he called his son and told him that they were absolutely coast to coast on real estate development deals. That's a monumental thing, and to be able to find that kind of mojo to keep going. And this gentleman is in his 80s and he's still going, right? Because that's what he wants to do. And I love doing that. I love giving back to the community. I like being a part of other things. But I think continuing to evolve and continuing to learn and continuing to put things together. So I think the next 5 years, this last 5 years, we've raised about $78 million. Our goal is to raise that in the next 2 years moving forward. So it's just going to continue to scale what we do. Our housing shortage isn't going away anytime soon. Even if we deport people, we just saw what's happened with the LA fires.
Yeah.
There's always ebb and flow. There's always a shortage of these things and regulation and everything. So, and we're being more of a renter nation. So people are starting more businesses. All this is going to continue to happen. So we're always going to have product to build. So I'm always going to have something to do there. It's just about maybe elevating it a little bit more and making it more systematic to where it's easy to go in and chunk away at things,
Got it. So here we're filming this in early January. I know you're probably not a New Year's resolution kind of person, maybe.
No, I am.
You are, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so then I think this topic of goal setting, there's the people that don't want to set a goal too high because at the end of the year they look at it as a pass fail, right?
No.
So you definitely subscribe to set the goal as high as humanly possible. That expands your mind and that gets you.
Yeah, I try
higher.
to set 50 to 70 goals a year.
Wow.
And I usually get through 35 or 40.
Okay.
Right. And I try to set goals in every sector. In fact, I've been to a goal setting event that Robert Helms does, and you can find Robert Helms online. But every January he does a goal setting event, and it's a 3-day event, and it's like 1,500 questions you go through in these 3 days, and it really helps you to dig deep and understand. But I've also been through it, and I go, my goals don't ever fall off. Right. So if I set 70 goals and I get 40 accomplished, that just means that I only need to set 40 for next year.
Yeah.
Right. Because I have 30 leftovers. Right.
Yep.
But it's an evolving thing, and it's not a pass fail. It's okay, I said I was going to raise this much money. Why didn't we raise this much money? And how do I correct that so that I can then make that a reality? I hate to admit it, but I bought a twin-engine airplane 2 years ago, and I still don't have my instrument rating and my twin-engine rating. I've been too busy with other things, and that hasn't been a priority. That's still on my goals list, and that training starts February 2nd.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm going, okay, fine. I'm getting to that. I'm prioritizing that, and I will have that done in the next 60 days. So by April, I'll have all that done. But it's just a matter of having those on there, and I am the stretch yourself to the point that, look, if you like hiking and you think that maybe someday way down the road you want to do Everest, you're an idiot. But anyway, let's just say that that's your thing, right?
Yeah.
Put that on your goal sheet now, even though you don't have the money for that expedition. You don't have the training. You don't have the technical ability, because every year that you're going, hey, I'm going to climb Everest and I'm going to climb,
Kilimanjaro.
Camel's Back Park. That's me right there. I'm like, woo, that was good. That was real good. But every year you know that you're getting closer and you're getting closer, and that's always still there. But the only difference between a dream and a reality is the actions you take.
Yeah.
And if you sit there and dream and wish upon a star, it's never going to happen. But if you've got the actions to go with it, that you are getting one step closer. I had a friend of mine that they did 3 peaks around here in one 24-hour setting that were over 10,000 feet, right? And that was
Wow.
these guys were nuts, right? They just up, down, right? And it was kind of insane, right? And I may have some of my facts wrong, but it was like 19 hours. They burned like 7,000 calories, doing this thing. And I'm like, why? And they're like, it was on the goal sheet. And it's a goal between here and another goal, right? And you'll always find that successful entrepreneurs, if you go back and do the research and look at who sets goals and who's successful, it's not a mystery as to why they're directly correlated.
Yeah.
It is not a mystery as to why people that set goals are more successful, because even missing is still better than not trying.
100%, because it becomes your guiding compass, right? It's something you can latch onto when things are really hard. You can look at that and say, you know what? No, I'm not ready to do that today, but I'm going to do it.
Well, and the one thing I did this year that was different is I set the goals with my wife.
Mm.
And it wasn't that my goals were her goals or her goals were my goals, but it was that I have buy-in on her goals, right? So it wasn't the first week before we're in there going, how can I support you on that goal of doing this? Because I can see you're not, right?
Yeah.
But it was that kind of a thing. So we're expanding that. We're going, okay, how can I support you in your goals and you can support me in mine? And I have my own trajectory. And then we have, a couple things we want to do together. But it's this whole big thing of how can I support you? Because nobody gets there alone.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I have been doing that. This will be our 4th year.
Yeah.
The first year that we started doing it was really difficult. So she came from the mindset of, I'm afraid to set that as a goal because if I fall short, it'll be a complete failure. Right. So that was the way that she thought about goal setting, of like, it's an ultimatum. And I don't want to, at the end, to look at this if I failed and have to deal with that. So I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's just chunk it down.
Yeah.
Like, right, let's get some softballs across the plate and just hit them out of the park. And it worked. So now by year 4, she's actually more excited to do it than I am.
Yeah, and that's the problem you wind up with, right? You fire them up, and then all of a sudden you got a chainsaw chasing you. You're like, oh, crap, what did I do?
Exactly.
But that's the reality. And I think that's the biggest thing, back to where we started with this conversation, that I embrace failure.
Yep.
I don't go looking for it, but if I fail, that's fine. What would I do different now that I know what doesn't work? Thomas Edison is probably the greatest example. I know 10,000 ways how not to make the light bulb. He didn't say he's got 10,000 failures. That's what everybody else told him.
Yep.
But we are very thankful for Mr. Edison and his 10,000 failures. And that's really what it takes because, how many kids out there have gone to college to pursue their dream job and they get out in the real world and they go, dude, this sucks.
Yikes.
I don't like this at all,
Yep.
right? I think the statistic is like 15% of college graduates are working in their field. That means 85% of you are failures. No, you're not. You know what you like but don't want to pursue on a daily basis. What works for you,
It also means that college is probably pretty wealthy at this point.
Yeah. And I'm not a proponent of college.
Yeah.
In fact, when my kids, I didn't want to discourage my kids from going to college, but I did it very differently.
Yeah.
When my daughter came to me and said, hey, what do you want to do? I want to go to college. And I said, great. First thing we're going to teach you is how to get a loan. What? Oh, yeah. We're going to go to the bank. How else do you learn at 19 years old? Somebody will give you money with no credit score, no job, and no future job.
Yeah.
Right? We go down and we figure this out. We get loans, and we understand the difference between loans and grants. Ooh, grants are very good, right? Go to college. She works in a field of study for 2 years, and then we'll sit down and talk about it, right? So she does that. She goes to culinary school in New York, big fancy thing, it was great. The food was phenomenal. I love visiting her, right? She gets out. She works in some great restaurants. She comes to me 2 years later, and she says, Dad, here it is. I'm done. I've paid my $500 a month that my student loan requires, and, I'm going to pay this off in 30 years. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, so here's how I can participate. I can write you the check, and we can pay that off right now. Or we can invest that in something that will make the payment, and you'll still have this amount.
Mm.
And what that started was a conversation between her and I over the last 2.5 years that she went into digital currencies, has in 2.5 years paid off her student loan debt, and has $100,000 sitting in the bank. Because she did it differently, she now knows how to get a loan. She knows what she wants to do. She has enough money to either buy a house or start a business. She knows how to make payments. She knows how all that works. But it wasn't just here's money, go pursue your dream. Well, she had to go work for it,
Yep. Yeah.
And whether or not she stays in culinary remains to be seen.
Right. But now she has those skills for life.
She has those skills for life, and she found a way to get out of the debt, and now she has that skill for life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, the financial competence and understanding how everything fits together and what's at stake, because you see so many people that enter college, or they have no clue not only about who they are, about what they're going to do, but then at the end of it they have no financial literacy.
Right.
So they don't understand, hey, if I go do theater or the arts and I go live in New York City, how am I going to pay the rent?
I
right?
had a guy that came to work for me at one point. He was a truck driver.
Yeah.
And this was back when Barack Obama was getting ready to be elected president. And he goes, the one thing I really do like about Barack is he's going to forgive the student loan debt. And I said, you got a degree? He says, I have a master's in physical education. I said, you have a master's degree in PE? He goes, yeah. I go, where'd you get your master's degree? Cal Poly State. I said, what'd that cost you? He said, $100,000.
Oh.
I said, man, the first thing they needed to give you was a calculator to let you understand how much your children are going to owe when you're dead from getting a PE degree that's going to, it doesn't pay enough to offset $100,000. That's criminal.
Yeah.
Right? Number one, that the college did that to you, but that you thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Here you are, $100,000 in debt at 9% on something that's you're gonna be paying $500 a month forever.
Brutal.
you know, but that was the mentality, right? Oh, they said I could do it.
Super common thing, by the way. I mean,
Very.
yeah. I have some hope that reverses a little bit here.
Well, I think it is, you know, in the trades. I mean, you know, when my son graduated college, we had a party for him, and you know, he went to U of I, and you know, wildlife management, very specialized, great deal. We'll see how that works out with him over the next couple of years. But one of his good friends from high school was there.
Yep.
And Tristan went to the lineman's college out here, and $18,000. Now working for Idaho Power, making $100,000 a year, right? And so everybody else is just getting done. He's 3.5 years into his career, already owns a home, is deciding whether or not he wants to continue to have the roommate because he's a pain in the butt, and is making 80 to 100 grand a year because he's working all the nights, all the weekends, all the holiday shifts, you know, at a really great company. Yeah. And it's like, you know, where did that become unpopular? If you go to work for a plumber, they will teach you through an apprenticeship program that in 4 years you got paid to learn. You want to go to operator school, you can go to a short 6-month program on how to operate heavy equipment and go get a job. There's a lot of that out there that is coming back into vogue.
Yes.
Because we've got too many, you know.
Let's call it white collar.
Let's call it theater.
Yeah.
Let's call it political science, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
And trying to find their way in the world that doesn't really have an applicable skill that an applicable problem that it solves.
Yeah. As somebody that, you know, raises a lot of money, you would know this better than me, obviously, but it seemed like during COVID, when money was flowing, there was a lot of people that got into syndications or started the syndication that maybe were not well prepared. If somebody's looking to put some money to use, what are some things they should look out for? That
track record.
Yeah.
Track record. You know, I mean, and again, we talked about resume, right? I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. This has been my profession, right? The fact that I am late to the syndication game means that I've had all these successful deals that got me here, and now I've gotten into an arena that was larger than my previous wallet could afford. But, you know, you need to look at who the syndicator is. You need to look at who the operator is. And they better, I mean, just think about this guy as your heart surgeon. Are you going to want a heart surgeon that used to be playing Pokemon Go 3 years ago, that was working at a tech company in Silicon Valley and is now convinced all of his tech buddies to introduce the real estate to them? You're going to, I mean, you want somebody that has been through stuff. And there's lots of them out there that have been through the cycles. That have done well. You know, I've got a really good friend of mine in Arizona. He's got a $2 billion portfolio, been doing this for 20 years, you know, and what you're finding is that when it's shaking out right now, you're finding out who was doing the Warren Buffett thing and swimming naked, right?
Yep.
You know, who has the chops and who has the operations and who understands, you know, anybody can say, well, I'm going to be the operations guy. For what? How do you understand your market to increase your occupancy and lower your expenses? What is your training in that? How have you gotten there? You know, if you've been working in Silicon Valley, that is a really terrible example of decreasing expenses.
Yeah.
Those guys throw money out hand over fist, hoping that one of three work. And they, you know, I mean, the way that whole tech market works is 9 fail and the 10th one goes to the moon.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you've got, I mean, how many electric car companies have failed? And we got one Tesla. Yep. We got one Google. Well, what about Ask Jeeves? You probably don't even remember that.
I do that. I do. Yahoo.
You know, Yahoo and Netscape and all these other ones that were out there before that are non-existent anymore, right? And yet we got Google and everybody goes, oh, I want to be the next Google. Well, yeah, you got one Amazon, you know? And so you really want to be looking at it like my life depends on this. And people were sending money to people. I mean, I'm often surprised at how many of my investors don't actually come to meet me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I invite everybody, you know, if you want to be involved with me, let's go look at the projects. Let's jump in the car. Let's go look around. There's a lot of people that are just like, you know, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, to each their own.
Especially in the social media age, I can tell you that's pretty dangerous because anybody can flash a check or a fancy
I mean, I
watch.
can Turo a Lambo, you know.
There you go. And they do.
Yeah. You know, I can't afford to drive it, but, you know, we spent all the money on. But it's just, you need to know that they have the chops to do it.
Yeah.
You need to talk with the people that they've worked with in the past. I mean, I have a list. If you want to work with me, if you want to invest with me, I have a list of investors. You can call them.
Yeah.
Right. And I do that in reverse. I say, hey, do you want to talk to some of my investors? Then I reach out to investors because I don't want to give you a list with names and numbers on it. And I'll have investors call you. Right. Because I don't want to just be like, yeah, here's a list, but also look at past deals and look at, here's the actual contract documents of what we bought it for, what it cost to build, and what we sold it for. I have hard data here, you know? And so you really want to make sure that you have that so that you know that there's a risk with everything. And there is no guarantee of making money, even with experienced operators, right? But the chances are much higher with somebody that's done it for a longer period of time than somebody that's brand new.
Love that. And I think, too, the understated thing, the relationships with city council, municipalities, counties.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the things that if you're a passive investor, you don't really understand how it takes multiple years to get stuff entitled and all those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you want to, you want to make sure that you're not investing. Take the time to understand what you're investing in. If you don't understand my underwriting, let's get on the phone and help you understand it.
Yeah.
I've got 4 or 5 videos I can send you that other people have made that'll help you understand underwriting better. But you need to understand what you invest in. In the early, stages of the crypto market, I invested in some stuff I didn't understand.
Yep.
And guess what I got? A lesson.
Hacked.
I guess. Yeah. Now I understand what I'm investing in there. And I know that what I'm doing makes sense, and I'm doing it on purpose so that we can make that a reality. Right. But if I don't understand it, I won't invest in it because my history has shown that the less I understand, I have to understand the ins and outs of it. I have to understand how we get there. Now, I don't have to understand every single nuance about this particular deal. I don't need to know what the tenant in A103 is, but I do need to know what we're doing there, what makes it a good in, what makes it a good out, how this is going to work.
I absolutely love that. The last question I have for you, politically, right, deciding where to embark on these big projects. Obviously, you have fundamentals, job growth, wage growth, population growth, all these things that we look at. But politically, when you're looking at a state to do one of these big projects in, maybe county to county, it's actually different politically. How do you go about evaluating that in your relationships there?
Well, it isn't a political statement, but it is.
Yeah.
I don't go where Democrats are, right? And it's not that I have. It has nothing to do with how I think you should vote. If you want to vote Democrat, go. But, it has to do with getting things done. And I'm looking for something that's landlord friendly. I'm looking for something that a city council wants to see growth happen because they want to see tax dollars come in and they want to see things going on, right? And those are Republican states. Those are red states, right? So when you look at it, I mean, California is going through this massive fire. And Gavin Newsom had to do this executive action to repeal all of the climate change, which makes me question, why do we have to have it if we could just repeal it to do all these things because of an emergency? Or was it just to penalize the poor? But the reality is I need to go where I can get service for myself and my investors, right? So I look at, number one, I look at wage growth. I don't care about job growth as much as I care about wage growth because if my apartment is going to cost more next year, you've got to make more.
Yes.
Because there comes a point when we've squeezed all the juice out of this turnip, right? So I look at wage growth first. I don't have to divide it by red and blue states. What my criteria is always leads me to red states.
Yeah.
Right? I need wage growth, then I need job growth, then I need satisfaction and quality of life. I need to see inbound traffic, right? And those things are always indicative of healthy economies. Healthy economies happen in red states.
Sounds a lot like Idaho.
Very much like Idaho. Very much like Arizona, where we are. Very much like Texas, where we are. Very much like Florida, where we are. The outlier is the Washington, but I'm right on the border, right?
Yeah.
So again, county to county, I'm in the reddest part of a blue. I'm in the purple part.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I look at my whole portfolio, that project is doing the worst of all my portfolio because of some of the things, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to understand where you're going and why you're going there for sure.
Yeah. And just to kind of summarize that for people. The reason that is a lot of times your timelines, just the approval process can be double or triple.
The approval
in those
process or
areas.
the eviction process, right?
Exactly.
I
Yep.
mean, I had a gal that in Idaho would have taken me 38 days to get out. Took me 15 months, and during that time, the pictures that we have of what she'd done to the unit cost me $18,000.
Oh,
That's just the repairs. And then I had the 18 months, the 17 months I didn't get money,
yeah.
right? And so all of that is not somewhere I can be, but now I know when I inherited this gal, she was on a month-to-month, and in a month-to-month, that is considered an acceptable contract, that until you get her under contract, you cannot evict her.
Seems a little backwards.
we rectified that problem, right?
Yeah.
And now we know that we cannot have anybody on a month-to-month. The minute you are, our leases now state that the minute your lease expires, if you have not given us your 30-day notice, you are immediately given your eviction notice.
Yeah.
You are out. Now, if you want to re-sign, that's fine, but we will not ever, under any circumstances, go to a month-to-month contract with you. It is considered the day of here's your eviction notice,
Yeah.
right? And it's unfortunate that we have to act that way, but we read the laws, and we understand the laws, and we understand how we're going to act in light of those laws.
Yeah. I love that. And that's the best lessons are learned the hard way, right? That was probably what, an $80,000 lesson when it's all you include the
No,
missed
it's
rents?
only 63.
Only 6.
Yeah. I mean, 18 months of rent at $1,500 a month, 18,000 in repairs. I think we had about 12,000 in legal fees. Then we had to rewrite our lease. So yeah.
But the people that are listening to this and are thinking, oh, that doesn't matter. This stuff matters.
Oh, it does matter.
Huge.
You know, I mean, it does matter. That was the profits on that project for the year, right? Now, did we learn from that? Yes. Does that make it all? Just because we learned, it doesn't solve it.
Right.
You know, now we've got to recoup for that for our investors. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Shannon. Anything you want to leave our listeners with? Maybe if somebody wants to invest in everything you have going on. I know the aquarium's already funded.
Yeah.
But maybe a jungle or something will come up soon.
Yeah. You know, if you want to get in touch with me, it's just Shannon Robnett or it's just shannonrobnett.com. And on there, you can find all my social media. You can find my calendar if you want to have a conversation. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about what's going on in your world. But, you know, I think if you're looking at anything, Ryan, you're a great example of how failing works. And I think that successful people understand that failing is part of life. And I think that, you know, if I'm going to theme 2025 as something, it's going to be spectacular failures, right? And because from that comes spectacular lessons that lead to the next level. How many rockets did Elon blow up before he got it right to turn a thing around and land it on a pad in the ocean? I mean, but there's all these examples of that. And your tenacity, what you've done with your business is exactly that same thing. You know, and so I think that if you're going to do one thing, it's overcome your fear of failure this year and go out there and kill it and make 25 the best you can make it.
Hell yeah. Let's make that the closing statement, guys. Have a great 2025. Let's kick some ass. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.